Welcome to AptiTuber for CLAT, your one-stop solution for all the CLAT preparation. Currently, we are running the playlist of CLAT 2025, section number 2, solving the paper in detail. Yeah. So this is the first passage as per the set we have. I hope you have gone through the previous video. So this one is current affairs, including general knowledge. What it basically entails is knowledge given or information given in the passage, as well as some bits that you should be aware beyond it. Most of the issues in this section are those which were currently in news for various reasons. So let's go ahead. Yeah. In keeping with the slogan for this year's Olympics, Games Wide Open, the opening ceremony took place outside a stadium setting by the river for the first time. And then it talks about Paris Games, COVID, health restriction, Tokyo 2020, Beijing 2022, Paris 2024. Okay. Then there are certain information related to how Paris Olympics could have been hampered. There was recent history of violence, then war between Israel and Hamas, and then Russia's growing influence. Yeah, these are the few things that happened, and I suppose the first paragraphs talk about what has been different in Paris 2024. Now the third passage, as you can see, talks about Indian performance, that what India has been able to achieve. Okay, so I hope you've gone through the passage either on the test or by pausing the video. Okay, now the first question, India won a back-to-back Olympics hockey medal at. Now this is a purely factual question, right? I'm sorry, no. This is mentioned in the passage and I have answered this purely on the basis of information in the passage. See, it is mentioned the men's hockey team achieved a second consecutive bronze, defeating Spain 2-1. Second consecutive bronze. So there must have been a previous hockey medal in Olympics 2024, 2022, Beijing, Paris. Beijing, Paris. That is what consecutive means. Peculiarities, something different. So what has been different? Took place outside a stadium. Most elaborate. Okay, something like very international post-pandemic vibe shift. Okay, great, same to same. Elaborate, just all the above, right? D. The third question, geopolitical backdrop. I think there are three things that they've mentioned. One is this, which is internal. This geopolitical backdrop would be about Israel and Hamas and Russia. Out of these two, it has mentioned Israel and Hamas. Immigrant influx, political stability. I think immigrant influx, if you would have read too much outside the passage, it could have been detrimental. You should have that needle fix in your mind, that what needs to be taken from the passage and what requires to be taken beyond the passage. Okay, which one of the following is true? Tokyo Olympics was better than Beijing Olympics. These two have not been compared and now nothing has been mentioned as better. Okay, that is very clear. Spectators thronged. Okay, this is true. Unaffected. Olympic Games are quite affected. How come they are unaffected? They are quite affected. Over here it is mentioned. Manage strict security measures. Stalked public consciousness prior to the game. Yeah. The political backdrop was no less troubling. the geopolitical backdrop. So all these things have shown to be affecting. Okay, I think this is there. If this is wrong, this is wrong, right? Two options are easily eliminated. Now this is also again wrong. So B is the only option that is correct. The highest Olympic medal tally for India. Now this is again a factual question, right? Beyond the scope of passage, I think by now you have guessed it. No, this is also part of passage. I got the answer from this. At the Paris 2024 Olympics, India secured a total of 6 medals, which was one down from the highest haul of medals from the previous Olympics. Previous Beijing. Yeah. 30. Where was again a factual question? Again, no. River, palace, tower, arc de triomphe. I hope this is not river. So palace, tower, this. I would go with the river. Why? Because setting by the river. Yeah. That is how I have answered. Maybe there can be some different ways of answering, but this is how I have answered. Sixth, more harmonious relationship was shown between Chinese and Indian Prime Minister, Chinese President and Indian Prime Minister. Okay. BRICS was important for Russia for showcasing that West had failed to isolate Russia. So one is these two uh, people having their harmonious relationship, and Russia showing its bond with the major powers of the world. If West is neglecting it, there are other powers. Facilitating trade, alternative payment system to the dollar. Okay. 4-year military standoff. Okay, BRICS as an idea was thought from former Jim O'Neill thought it, but it seemed to be a symbolic. Why? Because noisy ones like Russia and a little optimism he mentions because China and India remained so divided. I think then he mentioned that that does not involve US and global governance is not good enough. So he's in a way saying that it is helpful for some nations to be part of group. That is what they would feel if US is not part of it. Still, it's quite good. Okay. And the final communique from the summit, I think it's a kind of summary from the summit, said that these are the things that they worked upon. Yeah. Okay. Now 16th BRICS achieved launch of BRICS currency. I think it is mentioned that aiming but did not include details or timelines. So there were not much details or timelines mentioned for the alternative payment system. So how could launch be there? All of the above and this too along. De-escalation did not happen. Clearly it is mentioned. So C. S. Now this is factual. This is I think beyond the scope of what is mentioned in the passage. I don't think it was very clear. Yeah. So this is something that you might have to you might have had to have different beyond the scope of the passage. Yeah. The initiative Big Cats Alliance. Yeah, this is also something that is beyond the scope of the passage. So the answer is actually D. Some people would have thought this. There's a lot of things, but yeah, D is actually the right answer. It has 7 different big cats. This is okay. Now this is a kind of a question that you could have left. Yeah, it's not necessary to mark 33rd kind of a question. Critique from the Western economists. So the Western economists might critique BRICS by saying that BRICS currency cannot displace dollar. Asian economies will not impact the Western. So these reflect kind of a critique from the Western economies, right? Some of them have been mentioned, that BRICS club as long as India, little optimism, right? So I think this is what it is. You can comment below in case you have further doubts. I would make a separate video of a particular question if you have doubts. The emergence of BRICS signals a geopolitics without this. Non-aligned, not mentioned. This is also not mentioned. Asian consolidation. Now the problem with Asian consolidation is, first of all, you should have been aware that South Africa is part of it, so that would have helped you. Brazil is also part of it, so those are the things. And it is mentioned China and other emerging markets. Nowhere Asia word has been used if you read it carefully. The countries that have been mentioned are chosen in a way that a person feels that maybe that is what it is, but no. And finally, these things are not mentioned, only D is mentioned. Okay. Now, seventh passage of the paper, and I suppose third of the general knowledge one. On the recommendation of the Parliament, the President of India effectively abrogated Article 370. Okay, two new union territories were created. Ladakh had two districts, Kargil and Leh, 14 to 28, and then Leh and Ladakh. Okay. I hope you have gone through the passage properly. Now, 37th question. 370, it gave special status. It was not about GST, special jurisdiction, special tribunal. This is somewhat a little outside the passage. Somewhere it gives a hint, but yeah, obviously, it's not that clear. So you should have known to answer this question. Now, this is something that is mentioned. It was divided into two union territories. One is named as Jammu and Kashmir, and the second one is named as Ladakh. Okay. Now, next question. Which of the following union territories have legislative assembly? So, this is something that would require you to have external knowledge. So, this is Jammu and Kashmir actually. Yeah. Now, 40. The answer is A, 28 states and 8 union territories. The capital city is Leh. This is something that you can use fluke. Yeah, you can make a guesswork. And 42, what of the following is false? False you have to find out. Right? Kargil was never a union territory. Ladakh is not administered. 15 new, no, 14 new. 14 into 28 districts, right? So 14 new. 28 minus 14 is 14 new districts. So all the three are wrong. That is how you can conclude this. Okay, Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Okay, Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. So this is about 1/3 of all seats in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies. All these things for women, 1/3. Long term. So this is one thing, that it got a near unanimous support, but the second part is it is dependent upon two long-term exercises of census and delimitation. I think this required a little bit of understanding of what is delimitation, census, and how bills are passed. So census is calculating, or you can say rather counting, of population, and delimitation is dividing the entire geography of India and its population into small constituencies. Okay, so it's a big topic, but I'm just getting you. So these two are different exercises. Census does not directly lead to delimitation. Beyond the scope of the passage, I agree. Okay, so holding up half the sky. When women attend. So over here, from here to here, what he's saying is that it is an article which says reservation for women in India, and this is 2012, okay, almost a decade previous to this. So what they're saying is, whenever a woman is attaining a national leadership role, what Rudolph felt that it is rather inherited and it is more complementary to patriarchy rather than a challenge. So he wanted it to have a challenge towards patriarchy, but it was more of a complementary stuff. So they attained it from their father, husbands, or something of that sort. So he does not feel it to be very what you can say ap- appropriate for us to say that this has helped them for liberation. So that is what he's saying. It is not liberation. This is just an extension. Okay, I'm sorry for this. Inequality versus empowerment, women in India legislature. So this is a second writer, Soumya Bhomik, who says that we need to go step beyond quotas. Okay, and focus on the complexities. So requires a bottom up approach rather than top down manner. So bottoms up approach would be from grassroots level to the higher up hierarchy in the leadership role. Top down would be to choose ministers, MPs, MLAs, and then thinking that those would benefit, that benefits would trickle down the uh, uh, hierarchy in the country. So, in a country like India with a considerably large heterogeneous population, okay. So, it is descriptive representation and not substantive representation. So, descriptive by representation, what he means is that you can say, okay, representation मिला है, but ठोस representation नहीं है. It is just descriptive on the paper, but it's not having any substance to it. That is what it is saying. And that would depend upon the change in the attitudes of the people. So, descriptive to substantive would happen if there is a change in the attitude of the people. Okay, I think I've explained, tried to explain rather. Okay, so the Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiniyam 2023 will come to force after two long term exercises of census and delimitation. These two are done. Over here it is mentioned census but not delimitation, so I've gone with none of the above. As per Rudolf Heredia, women's political leadership depends upon mentorship of spouses' political affiliation, parental guidance, property inheritance. I think A should be right. Mentorship of spouses, political affiliation. According to Soumya Bhomik, the quotas for women should require a top down model. He's rather against top down, he's more for bottoms up. Fulfill a descriptive representation, he feels instead of descriptive should be substantive. To be implemented homogeneously, he clearly thinks that there is heterogeneous population, so he's not emphasizing on homogeneous, I think, representation, but he definitely wants to transform to substantive. Yeah. Should transform to substantive. Article 330A, 332. Okay, here it is. One third of seats for women belonging to scheduled caste. Okay. One third of that should belong to this. So it is not related to any of these three. Okay, fine. Now we will talk about on the ninth passage of the exam. During the First World War, Indian merchants wanted protection against imports, rupee sterling foreign exchange, discourage imports. Okay. I think it was a pretty moderate to difficult kind of a passage to address. Not because the passage is difficult, but I think the questions feel a little, dicey at times. So those who have had some touch to modern history would have understood the civil disobedience movement and all those things. But the rest of it is not something that you would read on a regular basis. Yeah. Okay, but otherwise, if you are having a touch and feel of modern history, you would have sailed through nicely. So 47th, which event in Indian history marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement? It is not mentioned directly in the passage, but I have gone through Gandhi's Dandi March. Okay, civil disobedience movement. It is clearly mentioned that. Business groups were no longer uniformly enthusiastic. They were apprehensive about the spread of militant activities, worried about prolonged disturbance, disruption of business. Okay. MNCs is not mentioned. Working class rejected is also not mentioned. Was a partial success is not mentioned. It is clearly mentioned. Failure of roundtable conference. It was failure. So only B is the correct option. Sometimes you have to select sometimes you have to select by um choosing, and sometimes you have to select by elimination. Yeah, what is the predicament for Congress? I think this is something that was an important predicament for Congress, that there should not be any reluctant to include. It felt that this would eliminate in this part anti-imperial forces. Yeah, imperial forces is British government. Militancy, breaking salt law. Okay, this is something that is not mentioned. I think this is something that is mentioned. C. It urged the industrialists to accept socialism. It was supported by Indian industrialists. It is mentioned that the industrialists attacked colonial control of and supported when it was first launched. So it's okay. Like, I think this should be correct. Major outcome: partial support of working class, galvanizing women, socialistic influence. I think all these three we have seen. Yeah. Thank you and stay tuned. Aptituber for CLAT.